how to master the art of courage, aka how to be brave, how to be fulfilled, how to be you. That is what we're going to be talking about today. I get asked very often, how do you find the courage to be yourself? And how are you able to do all the things that you do? Which I think is a nice compliment, but it's also a very difficult question to answer, at least for me. And I think it's difficult to answer because it's not often that you think of your life as extraordinary when you're living in it. For most of us, our lives seem pretty mundane. Even for the most talented person, their lives just feels like their lives. To them, every day is every day. They're doing the best they can. So it's a difficult question to answer, I think. But it did get me to start thinking about courage or being brave and the role that it plays in my creativity and by extension, my life. So I've been on the internet as a content creator in many different forms for about 7 years now. And apart from that, like even in my actual life, I have lived many different lives in in the past decade. So I had to think back for a second to really catalog all the things that I've done and who I was at the beginning of my 20s versus now that I'm in my 30s, how I've evolved and what are some of the things that have happened and what are some of the things that I've learned that have helped me shape who I am today and how I present myself or carry myself in the world. Because the evolution of self is definitely a very tricky one. It's something that doesn't stop. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to share something that will help you if you're younger. But the lessons that I'm going to share, I don't think are things that I would say I've learned in total. It's more how you apply it to the ongoing process of life. The overarching answer to that question is I allowed myself to become. I allowed myself to grow. I allowed myself to take the time that I needed to be subconsciously. I don't think I was doing it consciously as I was going. I look back and I realized I was responding the way I was responding to certain situations because this was something that I knew. So it's not like I learned the lesson and I was applying it to my life. It's just I realized in the moment that regardless of what was going on in my life, allowing myself to be who I was in that moment was very important to keeping myself sane. For me, it was all about keeping myself sane and making sure I could make it to the next moment, not unscathed, but at least in full form, because I think life takes a little bit out of us from time to time at lots of different moments. So in thinking of my day to day and what it looks like, I have managed to pull tangible lessons. Today, I will share four lessons that I've learned over time that have made it easier for me to be brave or have made it easier for me to either appear brave or to practice bravery, which is a key word that I actually want you to keep in mind. Practice. We are not told enough when we're young how much of our lives will take practice. And this ranges from practicing skills that you learn, but also practicing how to be a certain type of person, practicing how to present yourself in the world. Those things take practice. And because we're not told when we're younger how much of life is going to take practice, we end up setting extremely unrealistic high expectations of us and how we're supposed to move through the world. And when things don't align or don't happen the first time, we get frustrated and sometimes give up. So yes, even with bravery and courage, it still takes practice. And that actually beautifully leads me to my first lesson, which is practice makes progress. We hear a lot that practice makes perfect, and I hate that phrase. It is a phrase that sets us up for, I don't know what the opposite of success is, but whatever it is, yes, that's what it is. Practice makes progress. Practice does not make perfect. And when it comes to wanting to be more courageous, wanting to learn how to express yourself, to be brave, to know how to move through the world. And if you're a creative, when it comes to having the courage to put yourself out there, to put whatever it is that you make out there in whatever form, whether you're sewing, singing, making content, whatever it is, it's going to take a lot of practice. I'm saying that word a lot, but it takes practice to move from one step to the next, not from beginning to the end. So the more you can stop yourself from thinking about the end product or the result of whatever you're trying to get, the end of the road, the more you can stop yourself from thinking that far ahead, the better you will be in the moment, because you only have to think of taking the very next step. If having courage or being brave is something that you're struggling with, you shouldn't strive to be the bravest person ever or to be braver than someone. You should want to practice to be a little braver and to learn to speak up and advocate for yourself just a little bit more than you were doing before. You don't have to strive for 100%. So practice makes progress. Do with that what you will. Lesson number 2 is that to have courage is to feel fear. Some of my favorite quotes that have stuck with me over the years are from movies. And if you've seen the Diaries, then you probably remember the quotes that Amelia's father left for her in his journal, which is that courage is not the absence of fear, but it is the realization that something else is more important than fear. And then there's another famous quote from the movie Cinderella Story, the one with Hilary Duff. And the quote is, "Don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game." I think about those two often because I think at the back of our minds, we think courage means the absence of fear, that the people who we consider to be the most courageous are not scared. But it couldn't be farther from the truth. Most of the things that you're going to do, especially if you are at the beginning of the journey of learning to express yourself and to be brave and to put yourself out there in whatever form, you have to do it scared. We hear it all the time. So it seems like there's no other way around it. You can read your way into being brave. You can't pray your way into being brave. You are going to have to take the step. You're going to have to do at least the first couple of times you're going to do it scared. The very first moments that I can remember, like standing up for myself, whether it was to my parents or to my peers, I did it, like shaking. I was so anxious. It was showing on my literal body that I was uncomfortable with what I was doing, but I pushed through it, and over time it became easier. It becomes easier to defend yourself or to defend someone else or to stand up for someone else or for what you believe in or to put yourself out there. It takes time and it takes practice. You see how all these lessons all kind of warp around each other. It all becomes interchangeable at some point. And that leads me to my next point, which is that you have to shine some light on your shame, because one of the feelings that we're running away from when we are scared to do something, when we are not being courageous, aren't being brave, is because we're running away from shame or the possibility of shame. And when you feel shame about your work or about a certain part of yourself that you don't want to share, the best way to get rid of it, the most efficient way to get rid of it, is to bring it to the light. Because the more you keep this thing hidden inside of you, the more you don't express yourself, the more you keep it in the dark, the more power it has over you. So sometimes you just have to do the thing you want to do the first time. Do it scared, practice. If you can, do it out in public, and it doesn't have to be, like in physical public. You can't keep your shame hidden. Then it is yours. Then it is this big thing looming over you, this big shadow looming over you in the dark. It keeps being bigger and bigger and bigger. But once you bring it out into the light and you let yourself be seen just a little bit, it won't seem so scary the next time you try to do it, or the next time you try to express yourself. It won't seem as scary. The first time is always harder. You take one step today and then another tomorrow and then another and so on and so forth. And you will find that it will become easier as time goes on. And my last point, which is a lesson that I actually learned recently, is, that saying, failure isn't an option. I realized last week how much I hate that saying, because failure is an option. It's another reason why we find it hard to be courageous or, to be brave to do the thing, is because we're scared that we're going to fail. And that's because of sayings like that, or the environments that we grew up in that propagates that kind of mentality that failure is not an option. It has such a stronghold over you, because if you're going for something, success is the goal, but there's a chance that you will also maybe not be successful. I guess the issue for me is more reframing what we mean by failure. But saying failure isn't an option is BS, because it is. It is an option. And once you recognize that failure is an option, but it is more what you do if you don't succeed at the thing, because the only other option, if you are so scared to fail that you don't even try, is still failing, and like failing for real, because then you haven't even done anything. And because you haven't done anything, you haven't learned anything. So it all becomes a moot point at the end of the day. So yeah, those are the 4 things that I have for now. And I'm going to take it back to the first thing that I said, the overarching answer, which is that in learning everything that you learn about yourself when you're practicing courage or being a courageous person, is that you have to know it takes time. Every good thing takes time. Every worthwhile thing that we do or that we strive for takes time. It takes time to become. It takes time to become you. It takes time to get comfortable in your skin. For some people, it takes a much shorter time than it does for others. But for some of us, we have to put in the work, and that work is just as physical as it is mental. And I know we hear it a lot, but you have to be kind and patient with yourself as you would a younger version of yourself. Or at least I hope most of us are kind and compassionate and set realistic goals for the younger people around us. But yeah, treat yourself like you would someone you love. Being a courageous person isn't always loud. It isn't always about grand gestures and big things. It is the little things that we do So yeah, it is about the small steps that we take, and you can't compare your steps to someone else's, because for someone else, the small step that you took that is a huge victory for you, to them may be an everyday thing. It doesn't mean your small step isn't great. You have to think of things relative to you. You have to think of the stride that you take relative to the one that you were taking previously. So maybe putting out like something small, like expressing yourself in a small way, may not seem big to someone else because they have had more time to practice being themselves, to being, a huge personality or whatever. It doesn't mean that your steps or the things that you're doing are small. So don't belittle the small strides that you're taking or the small strides that it will take to get you from point A to point B. You take time, and it takes time for you to be courageous. This is something that I have had to learn. I don't want to say it the hard way, because I don't really think of my life as having been hard. I think of moments as being hard. I guess I just think, like, what other choice do I have? What other option do I have? This is like this is life. Like, this is what it means to live life. To be scared to do something and to see yourself push through it and come out the other end a little different, a little stronger, a little braver than you were at the very beginning. And to know that for you personally, it was a big victory. Yeah, I hope you give yourself a lot of grace. Okay, I hope you found this helpful. If you have any more tips or lessons and things that you would like to share, I would love to read about it in the comments. I consider myself to be a lifelong learner, so I hope you found this helpful, and I'm sending you all my love, and I hope you wake up tomorrow feeling just a little bit more courageous than you were today. Bye.